I witnessed my dad possessed. I no longer talk to my dad because of a lot of situations he put me and my siblings through that was traumatizing. But I do no hold any resentment and anger against this man. But one thing I will never forget was the time when I saw a demon in my own dad. I was very young when this happened, like around preteen age, and my family dynamic was very toxic, and there was a lot of substance abuse and fighting, and my mom taking us and leaving in the middle of the night, all those types of things. But one situation that happened on a particular night I can never sketch out of my memory, even though I would like to. Early in the day, my mom and dad were both arguing about something that I can't recall because this was years ago. But I do remember my older brother kind of rushing me outside to the backyard so that I wouldn't witness my parents fighting, and he would play with me outside to distract me. You could clearly hear both of them yelling at each other from inside the house, and it was practically impossible to ignore. Even the neighbors, I'm sure, heard them. All of a sudden, I hear my mother let out a scream that I've never heard her make before, and I noticed my brother stopped playing with me and ran back into the house through the back door. And me being scared, I kind of walked around the side of the house to the front yard, and I hear this gargling sound coming from the front door. I didn't hear my brother or my mother saying anything, but I clearly heard this like gnarly gargling sound coming from the front door, and so I slowly walk up to the door. There is a screen door that you have to open as well as the front door in order to get into the house. And as I walked up to the front door, I see my dad standing there with his fist punched through the screen door, and he was bleeding, and his hand was stuck on the wiring of the screen door. This alone like unsettled me, but then when I look up at his face, I did not recognize my dad whatsoever. His eyes were sunken in and pure black, like no whiteness in his eyes at all. And he was gnashing his teeth at me like as if he was a zombie trying to get to me through the screen door. I immediately run back to the backyard and my brother comes running outside, and he came and got me, my mother, and my brother all left for the day. And I didn't mention to them what I had saw, but I was literally shook and pale in the face. Because at that young age, I didn't comprehend what I had just seen. I never seen my dad like that before. Later that night, my mom decided it was safe enough to go back home because my dad had apologized and took accountability and promised to work on himself with his anger issues. So we arrived back at my house, and it's nighttime and everything seems to have calmed down, and my mother tells me that it's time for me to go to bed, and I'm already exhausted as it is, so I go to my bedroom and fall asleep. In the middle of the night, I am awakened by this extremely terrifying sound coming from underneath my bed. It sounded like a dog was panting and like crawling around in circles under my bed, and I am frozen in fear. I quite literally could not move my body whatsoever because I could physically feel whatever was under my bed was crawling around in circles and panting and growling like a dog under my bed. I legit start crying, and when I let out a silent cry, the noise and movement suddenly stops. At this point, I squint my eyes to pretend I am asleep, and I swear on my life my dad comes from underneath my bed, stands up, looks at me, and then walks out of my bedroom and goes back to his room. At this point, I am completely and utterly terrified because I have absolutely no idea what my dad was doing and why he was under my bed and why he was growling the way he was growling like a literal dog. The next day, my mother gets into another heated argument with him, and this time he backhands her so hard to the point she nearly passed out and fell to the ground. I run in the kitchen where this happened, and I am screaming at him, telling him he needs to leave before I call the police. My mother is laying on the ground crying, and I grabbed a knife and held it up to my own dad, shaking because of everything I've witnessed him do the past few days, and I am demanding him to leave. He does in fact leave. My mother calls the police and wanted to file a restraining order against him, and the police come and go and tell us if he comes back to report it again. And as the night goes on, I am actively trying to explain to my mom what I had saw at the front door in the previous night of my dad being under my bed growling. And as I am explaining this to her, we hear a loud banging noise coming from the window in the kitchen, and we run in there. And my dad, with yet again sunken in black eyes, is banging on the window saying he needs all of his belongings. And my mom tells him she already called the police, and they were on the way, and he is visibly like full of wrath, and then he leaves. That was the last time I saw my dad for years until recently, when my brother passed away and I saw him at his funeral. Now that I am an adult, it doesn't affect me as much as it did growing up because I learned to heal from everything. But I simply will never forget what I saw in my own father.